Alright, so inside Maya, I am using Maya 2019. If you download something else, you could have a little bit of a different look. They update about once a year for Maya, and usually the big things that change are the rendering engines, maybe some lighting. So the interface really should look fairly similar to what's going on right now. I'm going to delete that. So this is, once you've opened Maya, this should be similar to what you're seeing at default. Okay, so this area right here in the center of the screen, this is your viewport. All right, now your normal viewport is how you're going to see everything in 3D, and this is one big screen right now. Over here to the left, these buttons, these top three right here, you can click here to go into 4 views. So this is your perspective view, side, front, and top. When you're working in 3D, you need to look at it from all sides very often. But a lot of times you'll end up just like rotating around and tumbling inside your perspective. You can also go to a 2-up view. Something like this might be used more when you're doing materials and or UV unwrapping, which we won't be getting into with this class. So I think for most of what we're doing, you'll spend a lot of your time here on this screen, but you might every now and then come to this just so that you can see everything at once. So I'm going to stay in this right here. And all right, so we've got our viewport, and then this is the grid or the ground plane. That just kind of, it's not actually where the ground is. We can put stuff underneath it and such, but it's just a visual representation of a ground plane to help you out. Okay, so then on the right side, you have these windows right here. So you can see I'm clicking on the channel box, and then we have modeling tools, which we'll look at again once we put an object in there, and the different ways to choose. All right, and then you have the attribute editor, which is blank right now because I don't have anything selected in the viewport. Okay, so there's a lot of information that can go on over here, and it'll help once we start putting something in there. But I just wanted to quickly go over it. Now at the top, these are your normal file, right? So you can create a new scene, save. The increment and save is really good because if you name it like project 1, it'll go like project 1.1, 1.2, so you could always do Control-Alt-S to do it that way. Import objects, export. We won't be doing a ton of this, but there is information up here in terms of like display, different windows for different editors, like the modeling editors. So like the modeling toolkit, which is back over here on the right. So the everything that's hidden or not showing can be found up here. There's Arnold Substance, and we'll get into some of that. And then this is your contextual tools right underneath it here, right? And right now we're in modeling, right? This is the layout that we're in. We could switch over to rigging, and it switches this out up here. We can say we want to go to rendering, and it brings up more render options. I'm just going to stay in modeling for what we're doing. And then you have this next thing, which is this shelf with like curves, polymodeling, sculpting, rigging. These are the tools that you would use in any of those types of modes, and we're mostly going to stay inside polymodeling. But when we call it a shelf, it's because you can literally with these shelves you can just kind of take it off and move it wherever you want. You could delete it. So there's a lot of ways to try to make Maya's interface simpler for you. And I know that when you get into the CG Modeling 1, you'll get more into that interface. And for animation, I'm pretty sure Eric has a interface that is set up solely for animation, right? But for us, just know that this is the shelf area, and these are all just little different tabs on the shelf to help you move around. At the bottom, we have a timeline, right? So we can scrub through a timeline down here, play forward, back, stop it, all that kind of stuff. Again, we're not going to deal with animation for this class. I'm just trying to get you into the software. And then down here, it's like you're on frame 1 of 1. There's 120 frames in this scene, or that are showing out of 200. And then there's a mel script entry point down here, which is a little more advanced if you get into any kind of rigging where you need a script to help you. So that's the basic interface. So what I want to say right now is like, just don't don't get overwhelmed. I know it looks like there's a lot, and there is, but you can do so much with Maya with just the basic tools. So don't feel like you have to know what every single button does to get started, or to even feel comfortable. There are some things that you may never touch, or some things that you may use every day. It really depends on how much 3D you want to end up doing. For our purposes with the class, we're going to stay really simple and deal mostly with just primitive objects. So I did want to put up here, like if I go to create, and then I say polygon primitives, that's a whole lot more primitives than you're seeing on that shelf there, right? So they're up there, they're just kind of hidden in the create. So this has all of these basic ones down to the disk, and then I'd have to click here. Whoops, I do not want to put that in. So I'll press, it's selected, which is the green light, so I'm just going to press delete. I don't think it's showing up on my other screen. Oh wait, it's a right click because I'm in Maya. Sorry. So unlike in Adobe, when you see these arrows and that little, you see the icon change, like it gets that little list beside it. So these arrows right here, now you want to right click, and there's different types here. So I was trying to click and hold like we do in Adobe. But like, so if I want to do a prism, it'll just put that in there. So that's just saying that that's what these shapes are. I'll delete that. Again, on this one, this is a flat shape, so I'm not going to worry about it as much. Then you've got text, scalable vector graphic, and then into some interesting modeling tools. Now here's where this 3-week phase, I really want you to focus on just getting used to the basic movements and basic scaling and rotation of simple primitives. If everybody's moving really far ahead, we might break it down and get into a little bit more of actual poly modeling, but it's not the goal. I'm just trying to get y'all into the interface so that you've touched Maya and it's not such a scary program. Alright, so over here on the left we looked at the views, and then these are your selection tools, right? So this is like a box selection, this is your lasso selection, and this is paint, which we can't really paint select because we don't have anything on here, but we'll get to that in a second. And then you've got move, rotate, and scale. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and when we start talking about these things, I just want to put a cube in here. All right, so we've got a good cube. You can see now that our channel box has information over here. Right, so now we've got like translate XYZ, rotate XYZ, scale XYZ, visibility is on. If I go to the modeling toolkit, I could combine and do stuff, but the attribute editor also has like a width, height, and depth, and how many subdivisions, and you just got a lot more information, right? Because now we have an actual object listed. So I'm gonna get back to the channel box. The other thing that I wanted to show you is over here down underneath these views. This is the outliner, and it shows you all the things that are in this scene, right? So I've got a cube in here right now. There's a default light set, default object set, and so we'll use the outliner as we get into more grouping, where you want to have like multiple objects and group them. But this video, I just want to stay with basic movements and kind of getting at your bearings. All right, so we know where all the windows are and all that kind of stuff, so let's get back into these tools over here. So I'm going to come down to this. So Q, the letter Q, is how you're going to get to this selection tool, right? That's your keyboard shortcut. So I want you to kind of look down at your keyboard and see that there's Q, and then W is for moving things around, right? Up, down, that's single. E is rotate, and then R is scale. Okay, so Q for select, W to move or change the location, E to rotate, and R to scale. So if you can just kind of remember those things, that's your base movement for everything that you're doing inside Maya. All right, so now we kind of understand that, and I know a couple of y'all were asking, so I'm trying this keyboard overlay, so y'all got to let me know if that helps. All right, so the next thing I want you to think about down here at the bottom, before we start doing some movement with our camera, or at least with our viewport, is this little X, Y, and Z down here. Okay, so the way this works right now, Z is going away from the screen. Okay, so it is going back that way, down this line, right? So this is the front of the object. All right, and then you can see red X is going left to right, and Y is going up and down, just like normal math planes. If you were doing it's not grids, it's math coordinates, right? So your basic coordinates of X and Y. So Z just adds the plane that goes away from the camera. The reason I'm going to show you that is because I'm going to hold down Alt and left click to tumble my viewport around. Okay, and so I can go over here, and now you can see I've got X going back in space and Z going left to right from what we originally had. So you need to know that you can look down here in the corner to orient yourself as to where you are, and if I want to get back to normal, like that's my front view. Okay, so it's just down here looking at these three things, and if I hold down Alt and go underneath here, right, I'm looking straight up the Y-axis at this point. I can go like this, and now turn it upside down, so Y is pointing down. So that is if you get lost, that's how you get used to doing things. Okay, so just keep that in mind. The next thing that I'm going to do is just get in here. So holding down Alt on the Mac or the PC and left clicking is how you tumble or orbit around an object, right? So then Alt and right click is how you zoom or truck in. Okay, and then Alt and middle mouse button is how you pan around the screen. So this is why I was saying for a lot of what you're doing, you might end up just in this. Now I'm going to also scroll wheel and show you that you can zoom in and out that way. But it's just holding down Alt and one of the mouse buttons that's going to allow you to navigate. Now let's say that I pan off over here to the right and I've lost where we are. If you hit the letter F, it will center at the world origin, or it will center on the object that you have selected. So I'm going to zoom out of this a little bit and get back to the proper. There we go. So I'm going to get that selected and press delete. I don't know why I am in face mode. Let's get back to object select. There we go. Alright, so now that's gone, so I'm going to hold Alt and pan myself over here. So when I hit F, you can see it takes us back to the world origin. And the world origin is at 0.0. Alright, that's and a third 0 as well. If you looked at the attribute editor, we'll add a cube back in. So you can see we are at 0 position of X, 0 position of Y, 0 position of Z, and our object is straight up and down. It has not been rotated. And the scale is always set to 1. Now it's important to understand on scale you always need at least 1. If you put 0, then the object is gone. It's not actually visible. Okay, so let's look at some ways that we can adjust this. I've got the object selected. I'm going to go to my scale. All right, and let's talk about this gizmo. Actually, let's talk about the gizmo on move first. So X, Y, and Z, same as the colors that we've kind of got down here. The yellow is kind of the Y. And so if you grab any of these individual arrows, you can pull on just that axis, right? So I can't move it up and down if I'm using that arrow. It will only slide along that axis point. And that's super important for keeping yourself checked. And here's why you might sometimes switch over to this, right? Because now I can grab this and I can see what's happening, top, front, side. So from the front view, you can see that we are moving this, but it makes no difference to the front view. Like it's still just seeing that. If I move this up and down, now you can see the top view doesn't care, but it is still moving. So this is what I mean by you've got to understand where you are in 3D space and that you are working in 3 dimensions. It's not like Photoshop. You can actually move around inside here. So cut back over to this. get in here a little bit closer. Again, I really want you to just spend some time practicing panning, orbiting, zooming in and out, holding down Alt, Q to get your selection. Right, like nothing's selected right now, it's not highlighted. Click on there and select. Right, and WER for everything else. So this is move. So then you've got these squares here, right? Like this red one, blue, and this green. So these mean that instead of where these arrows only move in one, this will move in both, right? So I can go up and down and left and right, but I'm not able to move off that axis point this way, right? And so then this one would let me move this way and up and down, and this one would keep it on the ground and move it back and forth and all around. All right, so these are working on two axes with these cubes. And then there's one in the center. We will use the one in the center later, but there's an issue with working on it right now. If I get this back to normal, okay. So I'll pull this in. All right, so let's say we have this here, and then I want to move it to this back corner, right? And so I try to grab that. I'm going to rotate up, and I'm going to say it's back there on that back corner. Okay, so it might look like it, but then when I rotate around, notice it was just a visual illusion. Like it's not actually in that back corner. So when you're trying to place an object, you really don't want to deal with this center one because it can give you a false sense. What you want to do is use the singles or possibly the doubles where I can lower it down, get it sitting on the ground right there, and then I'll grab that to move it on the ground. And that way I'm actually moving where I want it to go. And this is why I was saying you might choose to work like this, like up here in the top view. All right, so now I'm farther away so I can see what's happening with that. I can also, same motions here, holding down Alt. The orthographic's gonna not let me tumble like we are in here because I'm just supposed to look at the top, but I can still Alt and right click and zoom in and Alt middle click and pan. Okay, so I'm gonna stop this video because what I want you to do is I want you to open up Maya. I want you to create a few objects, right? I'm going to go back here. I want you to play around with Q, W, E, R, also F, right? Like to center on objects, and then using Alt to move around and tumble and pan, just to get familiar with it, right? And so I've moved this off. I guess we were over here talking about it. Let me real fast, but so you can see like it's translated to 7, 0.48 and that. So it's just its position in space. And if I want to, I can click in here, type 0, 0, 0. And so I've zeroed it back out to its world origin. And I'll move that off. And then if we want to put a sphere in, now I've got a sphere in here. I can go to scale. And I could do this, right? But this is where, if you are going to ever use the middle one, it's going to be now, where you want to scale something evenly. And then I'll move that over here to the side. So I just want you to just throw some things in here, and then just for fun, we'll throw another one in here. We'll scale that up a little bit. And then, yeah, on rotate, so you can see there's a yellow line right now. We've got X selected, or Y, Z. The blue one was selected, so it turns yellow when selected. So now we've got Z, and so if I grab that and left click, I can rotate on just that axis, or I can grab the red one and rotate that way, or I can take this and rotate it around. You can also grab this outside circle, and what it does is it rotates perpendicular to the view that you're in, right? So now it's going to rotate it this way, but you can see on the channel box that's a whole lot of weird rotations, and then our scale's up. So if you ever get to a point where you're like, I have no idea what I did, just 0, tab, 0, tab. I can just go all the way down. Just remember, when we get to scale, you don't want to put 0, you want to put 1. Okay, so now it's right back to its original default. Q to go to select. Whoops, it should be, oh, I've got it in there. It's typing right up there. So I'll switch that to on. There we go. Now I can select this, go to my selection or to my move tool. Right, you can see it starts moving again. So those are basic interface. So I want to stop and I just want you to play around, right? Hopefully the keyboard and mouse overlays are helpful. Y'all gotta let me know on that one. If they're just too much in the way, let me know about that too. So I'll stop here and then we'll get back in and move forward with manipulating objects a little bit more.